The interim trade agreement between the EU and Great Britain has been in force since January of this year. The currently applicable regulations are only snapshots, and in some important areas there are no practical solutions, explained Hubertus Cranz, General Manager of the Federal Association of Drug Manufacturers, the BAH in Germany. A BAH brochure now provides information on the consequence of Brexit for the pharmaceutical industry and what needs to be considered. On June 23, 2016, a narrow majority of the population in Great Britain and Northern Ireland decided to leave the European Union. It became clear early that the so-called Brexit would also be difficult with regard to future trade relations between the EU and the UK, with regulatory consequences for the pharmaceutical industry. A provisional trade and cooperation agreement has been in place between the EU and the United Kingdom since January 1st. The ratification of the agreement is expected in April 2021 if the Northern Ireland Protocol stuff is cleared. The trade agreement is incomplete in key areas and only represents a snapshot, according to Hubertus Cranz, as I said, General Manager of the BAH. He says in some important areas there are no practical solutions, for example, for the full recognition of official inspections by the other side. And Cranz is quoted with this in a press release from the BAH on the publication of the company's own Brexit brochure. These and many other points could and should be regulated in a future mutual recognition agreement, an MRA, he says. According to this, the MRA should facilitate the mutual recognition of batch and import tests, official drug control laboratories, GMP inspections and CE markings that include medical devices. The BAH has only been closely monitoring developments in connection with Brexit for years and recently published a new brochure entitled Brexit and its Consequences for the German Pharmaceutical Industry. The main purpose of the paper is to provide orientation and provide information on what pharmaceutical companies need to be prepared for. The brochure explains, among other things, the peculiarities of the validity of European law in Great Britain, new transition periods, research, approval, manufacture and testing of pharmaceuticals, pharmacovigilance, counterfeit, patent, trademark and data protection, as well as regulations relating to medical devices. Because the post-Brexit trade agreement has not yet been ratified, the BAH recommends that its members prepare for different situations. The association points out, for example, that the regulation according to which a marketing authorization holder who sells pharmaceuticals in the UK can continue to be based in the EU or the EEA may be limited in time. However, no deadlines have yet been communicated in this context. Nevertheless, the BAH recommends preparing for it as soon as possible. In the area of data protection, the BAH advises all companies to review their data processing agreements and data protection governance with regard to their data traffic with the UK and to adjust them if necessary. Due to the already started implementation of the EU General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, into national law in Great Britain, the BAH expects that an adequacy decision will be made. The background to this is, according to Article 45 of the GDPR, the European Commission can determine that a third country guarantees an adequate level of data protection. If a data transfer is covered by an adequacy decision, no further protective measures are necessary. Although, in this case, we still have to wait what happened with Schrems and the ECJ. I talked about this in other videos, so I won't start that again. And another thing is, in the Western English port of Bristol, protests against the planned police law have resulted in violent riots and clashes with security forces. In the riots in the city centre, numerous people attacked a police station, as the Sky News channel reported on Sunday evening. According to the police, at least 2 emergency vehicles were set on fire. Several officers were injured and at least 2 have been broken limbs or something. Home Secretary Priti Patel spoke of unacceptable scenes and wrote on Twitter that the nefarious violence and minority rioting will never be tolerated. As the police announced on Twitter, a few hundred demonstrators had initially gathered in front of a police station in the afternoon. What began as a peaceful protest was turned into a violent rioting by a small minority, said Chief Detective Will White. These scenes are an absolute shame and will meet widespread opposition from the citizens of the city. There can never be any kind of excuse for wanton rioting. No one broke into the police station, but the facade of the building was damaged. The police requested reinforcements from the surrounding area to bring the situation under control. The police law introduced by the Conservative government, Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, grants the security forces much more extensive powers than before. It provides, for example, that peaceful demonstrations may in future be more restricted by the police if they intimidate the public or cause serious discomfort because of noise or for other reasons. Opposition MPs had criticized the law as an expression of the government's penchant for authoritarianism. The plan to increase the maximum penalty for damaging monuments to up to 10 years imprisonment is also causing sharp criticism of the law. Last summer, protesters from the Black Lives Matter movement had overturned a statue of a former slave trader in Bristol and thrown it into the harbour basin. Regardless of the law, the British police are currently heavily criticized. Officials last weekend, for example, at an unauthorized meeting in memory of Sarah Everard, who was allegedly kidnapped and killed by a police officer in London, cracked down on corona measures to be enforced and arrested several women. And that definitely didn't go well with the public. But some other thing that's happening in the UK, there is a census in the UK on Sunday. The census covers all parts of the country with the exception of Scotland. Because of the corona pandemic, the survey should largely be held online. The last census is from 2011. This year, for the first time, a question about gender identity will also be asked. Respondents can voluntarily indicate whether their personally perceived gender still matches the gender entered in the birth register. There had been heated debates on this question beforehand. And one more thing that might surprise some people that are spreading quite some nonsense recently in the comments. French forces have rescued 72 migrants on the English Channel coast, including 11 children. As the Sea Prefecture in Cherbourg reported, the people were on 2 boats near the port of Calais and were in distress. Fortunately, there were no injuries. Again and again, migrants cross the English Channel towards Great Britain. Often, they undertake the dangerous crossing on small rubber dinghies, and people were killed again and again. Great Britain and France therefore increased their police forces on the coasts. Last year, according to the French authorities, more than 9,500 refugees tried the risky crossing over the English Channel, significantly more than in 2019. At least 6 people were killed. Fortunately, this time not, and I hope we won't see that often. And that's a topic which is quite sensitive, but another one that Brexiteers, the hardcore cult Brexiteers, I mean, often try to use as a propaganda topic for Brexit. But that is absolutely unacceptable. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.